I'll do an intro because most of you probably don't know me. I'm Matthew or Mteam. I'm the co-founder of Spire Labs. I'm 17 from US. This is my first conference. Yeah, I'm really bullish on base rollups. I think Gnosis should become a layer 2 and specifically a base rollup. I think there's a lot of possible ways to get there. I think there's some good ones and some bad ones. I also believe very passionately things about the Ethereum roadmap, and I think we want to get into both of those.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Martin, founder of Gnosis. We did a bunch of things, Save, CowSwap. Very initially we did prediction markets, but now let's forget about all those things. So two things: we do also a chain, Gnosis chain, and it is what we try it to be is to come as close as possible to the hardness of Ethereum, and kind of here on the previous panel there was the statement, L2s are startups, and we agree, and we try to have Gnosis as robust as possible, and it's a chain that's running now for 5.5 years without a single minute of downtime. And I think that level of hardness is something none of the L2s can provide. And we think it's something that's valuable and that can only be built up over a long time. So that's why we double down on that hardness and kind of do things like have big focus on people actually running nodes, full nodes, being validators. So we have 300,000 validators. We really put a lot of emphasis on this idea to have a dep node, kind of a physical machine running at home. We have 4 different clients supporting the chain: Aragon, Guess, Nethermind, and lately Res as well. So all those things take a lot of time, a lot of energy, but those are the things that are required to build any software system that runs for years without a single minute of downtime. So very short, that's a pitch for not becoming an L2, not being a startup, being something robust that you can rely on.
Okay, let's get started. So you talk about liveness, right?
Yeah.
I think Ethereum has excellent liveness, and if you're a base rollup, you inherit some of that. And so I think we need to establish the idea of like, what does Gnosis actually need? Do you need like really good liveness? Do you need 100% liveness for DeFi? And then what are your other priorities? So we talked about decentralization as a kind of nebulous concept before this, but can we just try to get at those properties a little more?
No, for sure. So let's go through the requirements. So one requirement is that level of liveness. So yes, just an example, we have a product called Gnosis Pay, where you can have funds on the chain and you kind of tap your Visa card and you, well, for that, users just expect 99.99% liveness. So if you want to do your payment, it needs to work. And very technically, we have 2 minutes time, or kind of its funds are put behind a 2-minute time lock. So essentially, from a Gnosis Pay perspective, we have a 2-minute time to settle those funds. So if we couldn't get a transaction in for 2 minutes, then basically we would risk the state that we cannot settle that. Yeah. So the second requirement for Gnosis Pay is transaction costs and predictable transaction costs, and that was another reason not to go the L2 route. Is that for that application we need sub-cent transaction costs, and right now the data availability costs are essentially 0 from Ethereum, but that's extremely hard to predict how they are going to be in 3 months, 5 months. So they could at any time, it's completely inelastic, the supply. So as soon as demand hits that supply limit, then price will spike until to a point where some people will give up, and basically will just. The only way to resolve that inelasticity is by kind of pricing out someone.
Okay, so consistent cost, and ideally consistently low cost, and liveness. Well, we talked about it before, but I think you can get great liveness from based rollups, at least the liveness of Ethereum, and that's what you really need to do. Interop with Ethereum, that's why based rollups care. But also, if you want to do some external application with the real world, you need good liveness. And then when it comes to cost and consistent cost, you need to, you pretty much need something external to Ethereum DA to get consistently low cost for DA. And unfortunately, that's something that has a lot of trust assumptions built in.
Yeah, I mean, 2 points. So first, I do agree that if we would go a roll-up route, then we would go the based roll-up route, because that also brings, I mean, besides the liveness, it also brings interesting interoperability advantages to Ethereum. So you can kind of do calls where you affect state, or you can at least read into state of Ethereum synchronously, which is great for liquidity. On the predictable cost side, I would really wish, that would be a wish for kind of an Ethereum roadmap, that you would have, or that there would be more sophisticated pricing, or some concept of almost rent, where you currently, I think, well, both blockspace and data availability space are kind of sold and kind of in an ongoing auction, or just in a pay-as-you-go way. You have no way to say, okay, for the next half year, I need so and so much block space, and I want to buy that at a fixed, at some predictable cost. That would be a nice feature for Ethereum to do. But just as a side note.
Yeah, but I mean, there are teams working on that. Prime is building that for blobs, at least. I don't know. Like, the problem with predictable gas costs is that crypto was full of periods of time where there's like an exponential amount of new demand. Yeah. I expect that happens over the next year, if I had to bet. But because of that, not only does the supply of block space stay roughly the same while the demand shoots up, but the same for DA, right? Unless we can simultaneously scale, Ethereum tank sharding. What do you think of the kind of the path for Gnosis dealing with a validator? So 300,000 validators approximately, that you play a very important role today. How would they, if you were a layer 2 theoretically?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the one potential path I could see is to say we become something like whether that's a name or not, but a kind of a semi-based roll-up where we say we do a 6-second, Ethereum has 12-second slots, so we could do a 6-second slot time where we say every other block is kind of built by Ethereum. But then there is a block built in between by Gnosis validators. That would be one way to still kind of leverage that validator network.
Yeah. So you could alternate, just rotate the not just the sequencer but the sequencing. Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what a validator network is this rotating sequencer. So I mean, kind of you randomly choose a
rotate
proposal.
the entire network though.
Yeah.
All right. I will make a pretty simple claim, which is I think Gnosis would be able to access significantly more users, liquidity, and developer interest if they became a layer 2.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. So I think also to the point of Ronan, it's true that there is this kind of Ethereum aligned thing, but to what extent users and applications really care about that, and specifically now, I mean, I think right now there are on L2 beat there are 126 L2s. If Gnosis now would become L2 number 127, would really someone care about that? Would really what applications are there? So I think my high level criticism on L2s is that it's become pretty meaningless to be one of those 126 L2s because ultimately you still need to look at so many things, whether you can actually trust or actually, I mean, again, being one out of those 126 gives you very little guarantees. So ultimately, it really boils down to many details and many things that you do in practice. And there, I do think we do the right things. We do the things that absolutely prioritize reliability and security of that chain. And I do think we have a good track record with that. I do also think that we have a good track record with Gnosis in general to, not mess up. And whether kind of just adding this label L2, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm just generally not a meme person, and to me L2s are mainly a meme, so I'm not that eager to kind of play that meme game.
Well, Gnosis would be a base rollup, right? And those are, I think, have much stronger interop properties than OP stack rollup.
Okay, yeah, well then we are leaving the meme world and talking about tangible benefits. So if we would be able to have something like be able to do a synchronous read or kind of have transactions that synchronously touch state on Ethereum and Gnosis, then yes, I do agree that is a significant advantage. That's also a significant effort to get to that.
We have that live on testnet.
Yeah. yeah. Sure. But I mean, still creating a new chain compared to migrating a chain with significant users, with 4 clients that all need to be adopted with a couple of 100 million. Simply different story. So,
yeah, no, I agree. What about correct me if I'm wrong, but Gnosis has a plan to introduce a ZK validated bridge to Ethereum, right? I think that with that you get most of the benefits of a layer 2, except for this stamp.
Yeah. So we have already what we already have is ZK Lite client. So we have already a Lite client that runs in a smart contract on Gnosis that verifies Ethereum and vice versa. There's a Lite client, a smart contract, a ZK contract that essentially runs a Lite client of Gnosis inside of Ethereum. And with that, we can already prove consensus, and essentially that means our bridge is more secured not only by this multisig, but actually secured by the validator set. In a strict sense, that's still not an L2, that it's not yet an L2 because it just validates consensus. It does not validate correctness. And so to kind of go all the way to full L2 state would mean we additionally need to validate correctness, and then in addition we need to have some answers about data availability and forced transaction inclusion. Yes, those things are doable. Again, so far I feel like the practical benefits of adding them have not yet outweighed the effort. Just one more data point on that. Again, we are thinking about what's really making the chain practically more secure. And if you just look at historical bridge hacks, that's kind of what an L2 is supposed to solve. That if it's on L2, then it's secure, cannot be lost to funds. But in reality, you are only protecting against one kind of risk. So in reality, there are 2 ways of how you can lose funds on a bridge. Number 1 is the bridge has some multisig and the keys get compromised. Number 2 is there's a smart contract bug. Historically, $1.7 billion have been lost in bridge hacks, but only 25% of those funds were lost because of compromised keys. 75% were lost because of smart contract bugs. L2s don't protect at all against smart contract bugs. It's absolutely as likely that you have a bug in your L2. So it's practically speaking, I'm not convinced that L2s make your chain more secure.
Right. It depends on what you have in your bridge. It depends on how your bridge is validating withdrawals. If you have a ZK, multi-proving the kind of state-of-the-art setup today, or 2 years maybe.
Eventually, I agree. Yeah, I'm just saying, kind of at this state, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, if you became a layer 2, the only kind of remaining question I would have is the transition, the migration.
Yeah.
And I guess it's probably pretty straightforward to get a few things out of the box with base rollups. You can get forced inclusion. You don't even need forced inclusion. But what you can't get is the kind of all the state moving over. You can't get a kind of a seamless DA migration. I would assume like your canonical assets are still on Gnosis, not in the bridge contract. How do you think about migration?
Well, I mean, I would say if you have canonical assets, but the chain itself has things like correctness proofs and has things like, well, liveness guarantees through Ethereum and through being based and having forced inclusion, then you don't necessarily have to be concerned about those assets having to be bridged outside, because I mean you are just guaranteed to be able to use them or to access them on that L2.
Yeah, cool. We could get into that more. We have about 2 minutes left. I will ask you, just in closing, what do you think Ethereum should do?
Yeah. So right. So. So I think previously there was a discussion about unifying Ethereum or kind of defragmenting this wide L2 space. And yes, my radical answer is Ethereum needs native L2s. And what I mean by that is Ethereum needs not only based L2s, but Ethereum needs some L2s that are governed and deployed by Ethereum core developers. So the idea is to have, let's say, 64 completely homogeneous L2s that don't have any kind of security council or multisig or anything, but instead they are just, if they need to be upgraded, they are upgraded by our Ethereum hard forks. And that would significantly solve this fragmentation problem, because assets on those, let's say, 64 internal L2s would be truly fungible with assets on L1, so you wouldn't need to even have this idea of kind of having a deposit contract where the assets sit in. You could literally just say you trust that a message coming from those L2s so much that you can write token contracts that kind of essentially just reduce your balance on the L1 or kind of burn it, credit the balance on layer L2, let's say number 1, and from there you can send it to 7 and to 16 and then back to L1, and L1 would basically just trust this message so much that it could kind of how you do it today. So you kind of reduce one token balance and you just increase it here. So it would pretty close come to the original promise of sharding. That's what Ethereum should do in my view.
Okay, I'll take 30 seconds. I think there's 3 things we have to look at. The first is if we had all the same execution environment for every layer 2, everything is exactly the same. Somewhat similar to like Superchain, where you have some rules about execution to make it as easy as possible to think about for developers, and so on and so forth for like interop and deploying smart contracts on multiple chains. I think you lose parallel innovation, which is my favorite thing about Ethereum, and you also discourage any external layer 2s. So all of the Superchain layer 2s, Eclipse, all these old VM layer 2s as well, they all die because they don't have the Ethereum Foundation step, possibly. And then the other 2 things, I'll just real quick. I think you need to trust the sequencer, whoever the sequencer is. Even if you're doing base sequencing, there's still someone giving you a state root after making your transactions. And so you, at some point, you need to prove that that state validation is done correctly. And so you need some form of ZK proving, ideally fast for interop. And then the third thing is there's nothing like strictly stopping us from doing that without the Ethereum Foundation stamp of approval. Like Optimism can spin that up if they wanted to. And I think the reason that it's been generally avoided is because to get the in practice, to get developers building on something like this, you need to be opinionated, and you need to involve the hard fork kind of overloaded Ethereum's consensus. Is really what I'm trying to say at some level. So we should talk about that later. But this has been a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And good luck with your roll-up.